Hey gang, Chris here. Sorry to hold up the show, but I just wanted to take a few minutes to thank our special guest, Mr. Casey Liss, for joining us. I didn't really do a proper job of it in the show. Casey, you may recall, joined us a few episodes ago, and he is a world-renowned podcaster on such amazing shows as the Accidental Tech Podcast and Analog. You can find out about those podcasts and all the other great work he does at his website, CaseyLiss.com. Okay, so let's get on with the show where we're going to talk about some crazy things like what Disney could possibly do to open up Walt Disney World again and when that might be. We cover all the dates from maybe next month to, I can't believe we're even considering it, late 2021. It sounds crazy, but there's a good reason that could actually happen. So hang on to your freshly sanitized lap bar as we launch into Starport 75.
Space Shuttle, this is Flight Safety. Keep your hands on the handrail or inside the vehicle and remain seated while in motion. You are clear for launch. Have a great flight to Starport 75.
Hey, Glenn.
Hey, Chris. How are you?
I'm so conflicted, I don't even know where to start.
Why is that?
First of all, is this still the same Disney podcast we do, or is this like, what are we going to talk about now? Like restaurant takeaway orders? We still talking about Disney?
Yeah, we're going to talk about Disney. And that is still the subject of the podcast. But yeah, we can't really talk about a lot of park news other than one thing.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to talk about how I got in the park the other night, so we'll let that go. But I am excited that we have a guest host back.
Yes, we do.
So say hello, guest host.
Hello, guest host. God, that's such a dumb joke. It's such a dumb joke,
that was
but
great.
I couldn't resist.
I was hoping you would take that. So
hello, gentlemen.
Casey's back with us. So back for more punishment. So thanks, Casey.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine. I don't know if I'll have anything constructive to add, but who knows if I even did last time either. So it'll be business as usual.
Then you'll fit in just perfectly because we have nothing either. So anyway, glad we had you on. What was it 2, 3, 4 episodes, something like that? And it was a lot of fun. So thanks for coming back.
My pleasure.
But Glenn, what are we going to talk about? I mean, seriousness, what are we going to talk about?
Yeah, so last episode we talked about the closing of the parks, and we had a little fun with it, talking about where we would want to spend a day with the parks closed as they are now and stuff. But we really didn't touch on the second part of that, really, the reopening of the parks. And there's a lot of questions out there about when the parks are going to reopen. And nobody has that crystal ball. Nobody knows what's going on, even between Disneyland and Disney World. There are differences because of California and Florida. So I thought it might be a good idea to just, as we do, we just talk and put our thoughts out there. We talk about rumors a lot on the show, but I think this is a good subject. And Chris, you and I have talked about this a little bit through texts and just conversations, and I think we might be on opposite ends of the spectrum, and so
shocking. Absolutely shocking.
That's one of the reasons why it's awesome that Casey's joining us, because he might be the voice of reason between both of us. So how should we do this, Chris? What do you think?
Well, you read my mind, and we might have to punt to Casey on this one, because I'm like, how do we even start eating this elephant? I mean, I guess we could start with kind of like the hot take on whether we think they're going to open as soon as possible or delay as long. I don't know where to start with this, because that's kind of the dilemma, right? I'll go to the top end dilemma. The dilemma is you got two ends of this. One, which is completely conservative. Let's just wait until there's a vaccine because we're Disney and we got to be, we got our PR to worry about, and we got a bazillion guests that come in and we don't want them getting sick, et cetera, et cetera. And then the way other side of the spectrum where, not even that they need to make money, but, and who knows how altruistic they feel, but, I live in Orlando. I know how many people are employed by this organization. So there's going to be a lot of push to get people back to work and get things going. So, it's kind of those two forces there. So I don't know, Casey, anything, do you think that kind of covers the gamut of the extremes? What do you think?
I think so. I think perhaps it would be most interesting or entertaining more than anything to hear, when do you guys think any of the actual parks are going to open. So if you were to wager a guess, and by that I mean, the big four in Walt Disney World, and it's up to you whether or not you want to include Disneyland. But I'm not talking Disney Springs, because I could see an argument for Disney Springs opening much
It's kind of
sooner
more
than
of
the
a
parks.
more of a mall, right?
Right, exactly.
Than a park, right? Yeah.
So of the big four parks, when do you guys think we will see any sort of opening whatsoever? Like any sort of regular schmo? Like I could just roll up to Disney World and walk into the parks with a ticket, of course, and actually do something like ride a ride or eat or something like that.
So get in a gate, right? That's
exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Glenn, you're the boss. You go first.
All right. So my thought is we will not see a park open until September 1st.
Okay, show your math on that, please.
At the earliest. Okay, so
wait. Hang on. Hold on. See, I already have a problem with this. 'Cause you're softening your stance. Now I'm gonna channel you from 2 weeks ago. You softened your stance greatly. Your original stance was, if I remember correctly, they're not going to open until there's a vaccine. Which now we're talking January, hopefully.
Yeah.
January, February, March of 21, somewhere in there. Hopefully, right? Well, if you Fauci. Right. So, I do pretty good Fauci, by the way, but I won't do that here. Did you soften your stance, or let you wimping out, or what's happening?
I did. So there, and we'll go through this, but there's a lot of. I've thought about this a lot, and there's two sides of this. When do I think the parks are going to open, and when do I think people are really going to go back? Okay. So I think, during our last conversation, I was hedging towards the fall, and, this week, Orange County, Florida, and yes, for this podcast, we'll really just focus on Disney World. We're going to leave Disneyland aside, because that is a different ball of wax, and, it's a different, visitor group, and it's just different. So we'll focus on Disney World as we normally do. And, so I think it's going to be, I said fall. I'm pushing it up a little bit based on what we've seen, some of the actions that Florida's taking, some of the guidelines that Orange County, Florida has put out. But I can't see it being any earlier than that.
So to state your position, why did you pick that time frame? What do you think happens that makes that possible?
I think it butts up to Labor Day, right? So you miss the whole summer crowd. You don't want to bring that in. It's still early, even if, and I don't know your date yet, but if we're talking like a June 1st date, I think that's too early. I think they forego the summer and they open after Labor Day.
Okay, and again, the sake of this argument is that a guest can go in, right? Because they
Yes.
could do some, and it wouldn't be too surprising to me if they did some sort of cast member soft opening kind of thing to kind of test out, whatever they have to set up for this. But we're not counting that, right?
We are not counting that.
I wasn't asking you. I'm asking Casey. He's
No, that is my understanding as well. That for the purposes of this conversation, we are not going to include any sort of like private access or something like that. I'm saying, a regular person like me can just roll up and get through the gates and do something, more than just walk around.
All right, and to further qualify here, so what about resorts, like the hotels only? Do either of you think that they would do like a separate? Would they open any resorts before they open the parks? Casey, I'm gonna ask you. What do you think of that?
I don't think they would, because what are you really accomplishing by opening the resorts other than the parks? Like, I guess. Well, actually, maybe I should argue with myself. I guess you do have restaurants in the resorts. And so you could kind of like ease your way into opening that way. I still don't think they would, but now that I'm talking this through, as we speak, I could see a scenario where they would, but I still don't think that they would.
See, and that's what's fun about this is that there's so many little dials and switches that Disney could flip and turn and whatever that it's hard to say, but it's fun to think about. All right, well, Glenn, you really softened your stance. This was going to be a much more interesting fight, but if you had maintained your virus. But my original position when you were talking about that there had to be a vaccine was I think Disney will be much more creative, and you could lump Universal into that to a lesser degree, but I think they're going to be as creative as possible to get something going for a lot of reasons. One is to, they're going to get a ton of pressure from employees, from our governor, obviously, our wonderful governor. This is a politics-free show. Is that right, Glenn? Do I still have to pull my punches?
Let's try to keep it
all right.
as politics
So
free as well.
Our governor. I was going to do an expletive, but all right. So, they're going to be a lot of pressure just because, even though, I think the science obviously says the longer we can stay away from each other, then, at least the models show that it's better. You can argue whether that's worth it or not, but generally that's what it shows. But, there's going to be so much pressure to get things back together. And plus, I think, it's a little like launching a rocket. They're going to need some time to get things ramped up. They're not going to be able to just okay, hey, we're open. So I think they're going to have to maybe pick a park and say Magic Kingdom, we're going to open on X date, and attendance is going to be, 10% or whatever it is, and then a whole bunch of new rules that they have. But that's kind of the scenario I see going. It's hard to say what that date is, at least for me. I don't think it's in May. It's in June some point, I think, maybe early June, with an extremely limited opening, just because they gotta get that engine cranking again, figure out the distancing and all that stuff, which Glenn, I assume we can kind of talk through at least what the kind of the guidance has been, because there's a couple aspects of that surprise me actually. But that's kind of what I think. I think they're gonna be really motivated to at least do some sort of small crank the engine and get it to turn over. So that's kind of my position. So for me, I'm in they'll do it earlier than later, but with a lot of restriction, I guess is how you could characterize my thought. Okay. So Casey, tell me how I'm right.
So it's so tough because I have my answer for what I suspect will happen, and then I have my answer for what I think should happen. Mm. I think what should happen is it should wait for quite a long time. And obviously, I am not in any way qualified to talk about really anything on this particular podcast, but here I am anyway. And I don't know, it just seems to me like if I am someone who is even remotely worried about contracting any sort of illness from another human being, then the last place on earth I'm going to want to go is somewhere where there's a lot of human beings that may or may not share the same nervousness that I have. And, this is a little bit gross and I apologize, but I keep thinking back to, we have a couple of theme parks relatively close to me. We have King's Dominion, which is a sister park of Kings Island. And we have Busch Gardens, which is the sister park to the, Tampa Busch Gardens? Is that right? Somewhere
yes, that's correct.
Mm-hmm. And I love going to both. And I keep thinking about, Virginia summers are hot and not quite as humid as Florida, but they're humid. And it is not unusual to board a roller coaster where an individual who is a little more generous with their sweat than maybe they should be has just vacated your seat. And you look at this ride that you've waited some amount of time to go on, and you look at your lot in life and your seat on this ride, and you think to yourself, well, I guess I'm just going to sit in that puddle now, because what choice do I have? And I think about that every time I think about what would it be like to go to Disney World and ride rides when there are a bunch of potentially sick people all around me. And I just can't get past how do you make that, well, how do you make it safe empirically? And perhaps more importantly, how do you make it feel safe? Let's suppose, for the sake of discussion, that there's some aerosol that you could spray on a ride and it would instantly kill any virus that's sitting on that ride. Obviously, such a thing does not exist, but let's just say that's the case. Would I really feel safe trusting this magical aerosol to kill everything? Would I still jump on that ride after somebody was coughing getting off the ride right before me? You know what I mean? And so in that sense, I don't think I really don't think Disney World should open until the majority of the country is clearly, I don't know if remission is the right word, but until the majority of the country is clearly in a position where things are under control. Yeah. And I don't see that happening for months, if not many months. So when should it open? Oh, I think September 1 is early and probably aggressive. I think it would probably be even later than that, possibly bordering on 2021. However, Disney's a big company, and big companies really like making money. In fact, all companies really like making money, and they aren't making a lot of money now. There's no sports.
Yeah.
There's no Disney World. There's no cruise ships. Yep. And that's a big friggin' problem. So
Yeah, sure.
in that sense, I almost expect it to be uncomfortably soon. And I don't know what that means exactly, so I'm punting on my own question, which makes me a big wuss. But I would say late summer, maybe at the earliest. So I'm thinking like July, August-ish, which I still think is probably months too early. But I can't see them letting that entire however many square miles just collect dust for that long. And that's got some moral and ethical problems with it for sure. And I don't know if we have any interest in discussing that, but
Sure.
I just don't see him letting it rest for that long. And plus, I don't know anything about this, but does a roller coaster start to fall apart if you're not using it? You know what I mean? Like, does that create problems? I would assume so. Are they just running it empty all the time? Are they putting like sandbags in it to simulate the weight of people? How does that all work? And so there's major potential problems with letting these things just sit idle.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that a couple of nights ago for some reason, because I live relatively close, and you can feel, even though I can't see the park, I can hear the fireworks, see the fireworks, but it just feels like things are shut down, and it's like I wonder if they do have like hey, we got to run Space Mountain, like my wife's car we haven't started in 3 weeks, and I'm like, gosh, we really probably should do that to make sure it still starts, and,
right?
And I wonder if they have to. Glenn, do you know? Do they have to? I mean, they've never done this, so who knows if they even have procedures for that? I don't know. Do you know anything even remotely to that?
They do have a group of cast members still in the park taking care of it. So yes, they're doing maintenance, preventive maintenance, but they're not running all the rides all the time, but but they are maintaining them. They're making sure that when they do come back, they can even they're doing gardening and stuff. So they're still keeping the park up.
Yeah, they don't want they don't want it to look like my yard once it opens. Right. So, yeah, and there's an interesting aspect of what you focused on, Casey, which is there's the when they could open, which is kind of my my very probably too optimistic take on, well, they could do this. That doesn't mean people would go. To your point, and I didn't even really think about it until you started talking about sweat from other people. I'm like, yeah, I don't think I'd like that. But yeah, then I guess it's, would people even go once they do? If they say, okay, we're going to open the Magic Kingdom. But again, there's so many switches they could flip. They could say, okay, well, we'll open the Magic Kingdom. And I don't know if people would pay for this, but, maybe for $20 people could get in. But no rides are going to ride. We'll still have shows. We'll still have, I don't know what, some food things, but just so that people could get that vibe so that they could start to, get people in. I don't know. Yeah, it's... Yeah, but I guess that would be a question of people if even they chose to go. Glenn, I think you said even if they open soon, you wouldn't go, even if you could.
Oh yeah, absolutely not. I'm not going back till there's a vaccine. There's no way.
Is that right? Like a vax, like you really?
Oh, absolutely.
Like the ultimate. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you be in that camp, Casey? Because you said there had to be some indication that things got better, but is vaccine the trigger point?
I'd like to be like, of course, I would never do anything to endanger myself or my family. Why would I? Yeah. But I don't know. I'm also skeptical that a vaccine or a vaccine with strong efficacy is going to happen anytime in the near future. Even, and by near future, I mean in the next year or two.
Right.
I hope that it comes tomorrow, but realistically, I think it's going to be a lot like the flu shot where, we'll have something that might work sometimes.
Sure. Right.
Cool.
Right.
And so I think my expectation for myself and perhaps for most of America is that at some point we will reach a collectively we will reach a point where we say, okay, it feels mostly safe to leave our house. Mm-hmm. And hopefully, and now I'm bordering on politics, hopefully, we as a collective will listen to science and doctors and decide collectively as a nation when that time is based on facts. Mm-hmm. I'm a little scared that won't be the case, but nevertheless, when we as a collective decide, okay, yeah, it's reasonably safe to go out of the house and be around other human beings, then I think that's the point at which I will consider going. I mean, not that I have anything planned, but I would consider going, and probably a few months after everyone is going, and hopefully not coming back with major problems, when somebody else is the guinea pig, then I will probably be willing at that point.
Because there is a sort of, if you look to the possible futures, there is a future where there is no vaccine, but it just becomes the new normal that we kind of have to rethink about how we structure theme parks, right?
Exactly.
I mean, it's and I'm very much in the follow the science part, follow the data part. But, there are some, there are a lot of people depending on the livelihood of these places to be open as well. So there is, it's not a completely selfish capitalistic stance to say, we do need to figure out a new normal to try and take care of everybody in some way where everything balances, and who knows where that is. But, it's just those drivers that are there. So I don't know, but Glenn, maybe it's a good time to talk about, because Orange County has kind of come out with some guidelines, right? Because I think I live here and I barely know what's going on here. So tell me what's happening in my county. I think we're hitting phase 1 today, or Monday. Monday is a phase 1 reopening, right, for Orange County?
Yeah, but not for theme parks.
No, but just to kind of set the baseline. So, Florida and Orange County have kind of said, like, here's some guidelines that we can start to open up some things like restaurants, retail, and then they actually, which I guess shouldn't surprise me, but there's separate guidelines specifically for theme parks, right? Mm-hmm. So, what is the government handing Disney to give them to work with?
So, for the large theme parks, they phase 1 is 50% capacity. Phase 2 will be 75%. Also, have to have markings 6 feet apart in all of the queue lines. Have to wipe down all surfaces at random.
I think that one is after every ride, isn't it?
Staff to regularly wipe down surfaces at random for Disney and Universal.
Okay. Oh, okay. Because they had separate rules, I think, for the large and small ones, right?
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough.
Staff over 65 are encouraged to stay home. Mandates are all employees are required to wear face masks, touchless hand sanitizer to each ticketing entry and turnstiles, touchless hand sanitizer to each ride attraction entry and exit, temperature checks for staff prior to shift. All employees with flu-like symptoms stay home, wipe down all railings and surfaces after every use. Phase 1, 50%, and phase 2, 75%.
So what do you think about those rules? Are they sensible? There's one in particular that I want to gnaw at, but you go first.
With these rules, if Disney just does this, I don't know who in their right mind would ever go to a park.
First of all, no offense to our listeners, but you can't underestimate the number of people that would be like, I don't care if the plague is at Disney World, I'm gonna go, right? I think we all know people like that, right?
Hold on, but you say that, but one of the Reuters did polled people last week, and they said that 40% would not return until there's a vaccine, even if it takes more than a year to develop.
That's what they say.
And then, hold on. And then only when they asked specifically about theme parks, 59% indicated the park should not open until a vaccine is available. And then only 20% would be willing to visit a theme park when they reopen.
Wow.
So you say that, but the numbers, at least right now, the feeling in the country is they don't want anything to do with Disney, with theme parks.
So Casey, did you get a chance to see those guidelines beforehand, or did you hear
I
Glenn
did
rattled
take a
off?
quick look.
What do you think about those?
On the one side, yeah, it makes sense. If keeping people 6 feet apart is possible, which it seems extremely dubious if the parks are running at anywhere near capacity, but sure. Okay. Let's assume you can keep people 6 feet apart. Let's assume that people are hand sanitizing like it's their job. Let's assume that they're wiping down everything frequently. Like on paper, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But realistically, I just don't see how that's going to be enough. And I keep coming back to there was a news article that flew around a week or two back, and I can probably dig up a link if you guys want to put it in the show notes. But somewhere, I don't recall where it was, and I don't think it was America. Somewhere there was a restaurant that had not closed down when the coronavirus was floating around the geographic area where this restaurant was.
Mm-hmm.
And it just so happened that the way the restaurant was built was, I guess it was kind of like a wind tunnel of air conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was being blown in from, let's say, the right and then sucked out on the left. And it so happened that somebody who had the virus sat down like right near where the air conditioning was coming into the room, and all of the people that were basically downwind of that sick individual ended up getting sick as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think about that, and I think about, if you move air at all in any way, shape, or form, you are potentially making this magical 6-foot number become a magical 100-foot number. And what are you going to do to prevent that? Like even something as stupid as, let's take Rock and Roller Coaster, which I don't recall if this is true or not, but some sort of roller coaster where, the ride vehicle is moving with a quickness into a tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're naturally going to have like wind following it, because all of this air is just getting whooshed out of the place in which you're queuing. And so new air needs to come in from presumably where the riders exit and fill in that space. And so now you're getting like a whole lot of motion of air, which is the exact opposite of what you want in this particular scenario. And I don't know if that made any sense.
Yeah,
but
no.
do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's just, I don't see how to keep people safe in a situation like this. I mean, and the same goes for the cruise ships. Like, or an airplane
they're
for that
never
matter.
opening. The cruise ships, are never opening.
Yeah.
Just because they're bad enough just in normal years, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm learning two things right now. The two of you are way smarter than I am, and I'm never getting back into Disney World apparently. So. I didn't think about like with Rock and Roller Coaster, those kind of rides. Is there any attraction? You go ahead.
I was just real quick. That's one thing that is missing from. Sorry about that. That's one thing that's missing from the guidelines is employees will wear face masks, but not the guests.
Yeah. So there were two things that popped out of me when I was going through that list. That was one of them. But on the other hand, I can see like, man, how do you police that? And like, I don't. I mean, they could have it when they come in and then take it off. And then we have a 4-year-old that we can't even get to use the potty, much less. That's a whole other podcast topic. Trying to keep our kids to keep those on would be impossible. So I don't know how you would mandate that. The other thing that jumped out at me was the 50% and 75% capacity for phase 1 and phase 2, which to me just seems like astronomically way too high. That if you're going to even attempt this, you got to put that, because I mean, gosh, you've been to Disney even on quiet days, especially in Magic Kingdom, and you're still shoulder to shoulder with people, right? Yeah. So unless you go to like I don't know, whatever they call them now, the e-ticket night thing, like we did that one time, where there's like 5,000 people in the park. So for me, under kind of my extremely Pollyanna-ish optimistic view of how things could go, they'd have to set like a 5% park capacity, probably do away with all the interior queues and just have people, fast pass and you there and you just walk through, things like that. But are there any attractions that you guys see? I mean, if and I don't know who would want to go, but kind of like I said earlier, if they said, okay, well, Casey's right about Rock and Roller Coaster, that thing would just spread that like no one's business. So we're not going to open that. So we're just going to do live shows and you can walk around Galaxy's Edge or whatever. But I mean, are there other rides you think would be safe? Like something that's kind of like Peter Pan's Flight. Let's take a oldie but a goodie. So, the little ship comes in, they wipe it all down with Purell, next guests get on, and obviously, they can control the throughput speed, right? So they can say, we're going to dial way back down and, we're only going to be able to handle, 3 times an hour or something. I mean, do you think that would play a part in their scenario of, these rides are open, these rides aren't? What do you think? Anybody?
I know. I'm thinking, and I can't. In my mind, anything with a safety bar that people touch, and I know you're saying wipe it down between each one, but I don't know. I don't know that that's really realistic.
Well, I mean, I do agree with you, but to play devil's advocate, people are going to Costco and they're wiping down the carts in
Yeah.
between each use. So is it that
The-
different
not-
ultimately?
Not only the carts, but the handles to the freezer sections and all that, right? So
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a pain. I wouldn't want to do it at Disney scale, but I would think that it's something you could accomplish. And to answer the question, what ride would you be willing to do? I think, are there rides with like a headwind? And I mean that genuinely. I'm not trying to be funny, And the only one that comes to mind is maybe Soarin', because the whole conceit of the ride is that you're flying. So they're blowing wind at your face the entire time. And let's suppose, for the sake of discussion, that instead of 3 rows per like kite, if you will, and there's 3 kites, I think, something like that, or no, 9 kites. What if you only had 1 row per glider? Kite or whatever you call it, so suddenly you have a situation where nobody's behind you.
Yeah.
And except I guess at the very beginning or the very end, nobody's behind you and they're blowing wind at your face. Like maybe that would be enough. And again, I mean, I don't know enough about how viruses are spread and how this works, but the more I think about it, like even something like the People Mover, which is my far and away favorite ride there, and it's sort of kind of outdoors mostly. And even then, it's like, you're kicking up all this air where there's lots of people passing all the time. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, see, I was going to say that was going to be my perfect example of a good ride to pick, right? Because it's maybe I just want it to be, but
exactly.
But because you can space it out and say only somebody, you're going to only use half the cars, right?
Oh,
Because
okay,
they're kind
yeah,
of separated,
that's a good point.
so you can kind of separate people like that. It's mostly outdoors, like you said. It goes into space, and so as soon as it's in space, that's all going to die, right? So. That was a joke. You guys are supposed to laugh at that. So that would be my perfect one. So, hey, Glenn, I'm going to bring this up, not just because I will take any opportunity I can to correct you, but just to make sure that we're talking about the facts correctly. Uh-huh. So I'm looking at the slides that, unless there's other ones I didn't realize. So small theme parks, if I'm reading this right, they have to wipe down all railings and surfaces regularly. But for large ones, they have to wipe down all railings and surfaces after every use.
Okay.
Just in case that changes the dynamics any.
The one I'm looking at doesn't say that. So I don't know which one.
Well, then how the hell are we supposed to do anything if we can't have accurate information? All right. Well, anyway. It looked like somebody stole this from some PowerPoint, probably from Orange County or something.
That's what I'm looking at. Okay.
It's on the WW News today. If you go down to theme park.
Theme parks, large scale, Disney Universal. It doesn't say that.
All right, we'll cover it after the show. Oh, you know what? It's because it's in 2 different sections. Oh, look down at the red part. This is great for podcasts. Follow me down to the red section. The third or fourth before the bottom. Wipe down all railings and surfaces regularly versus wipe down all railings and surfaces after every use. So I took that to mean like.
Okay. No, that I don't take that to mean.
I
don't take that to mean every surface on the rides.
Oh, see, I did.
Okay.
Maybe,
maybe so. Okay, that's fine. That's not
like
going to.
Casey said that.
Look, that's not going to change my mind. So,
wait, is that our goal here? Is how to change Glenn's mind? Because
I think so.
I've tried that on so many topics, and that's impossible.
It pretty much is.
And that's the other thing is like, how do you gauge like whether that's been successful or not? Because like you said, Casey, not everybody would even still choose to go, but if they got some attendance in there. Man, you're really bumming me out. I'm trying to find some path to success here.
You know who will be there are all the Disney vloggers and
of course,
and influencers and all who depend on all of this for their income. They're the ones that are going to be out there, videotaping and showing. Oh, this is what a day at Disney's like.
Oh, Mr. Glenn, you're being naive though. You mean all the influencers that Disney will pay to come in to help spread the right vibe?
That's true, too.
Right? Yeah. Look how safe it is. Look, I got my Disney themed mask. Did you guys see that they're Disney's starting to sell?
I did see that.
Their own masks?
No.
Oh no, yeah, they sold out.
I had not
or
seen
some of
that.
them. Yeah, we tried to order some.
As you would do.
Of course.
So,
but the funny thing about this though is even as I tell you guys, I don't know if I would want to do this anytime soon. There's something to be said for throwing caution to the wind and just saying, why not? Because if you ever wanted the perfect time to go to Disney World and have no lines and
now you're reading
nobody
my
there,
mind. Yes.
this whenever they reopen is the time to do it. And let's assume, for the sake of discussion, and this is a big assumption, let's assume all the rides are open, and maybe they're open in less capacity. Maybe they're open with some changes. Like I don't know what that would be, but one way or another, let's assume all the rides are open, and you're in the first couple of weeks of Disney being reopened. I bet you that's going to be a delightful experience. I would think, in terms of lines, if nothing else. Now, maybe everything else around it will be crummy, but I got to imagine it's like unlimited fast passes for everyone there, because who in their right mind is going to go?
Well, yeah, that's a really good point, Casey. And I think that opens up another dynamic to this that Glenn, I don't think you and I talked about, is that there's probably a very different equation that somebody out of state like you or Casey would go through to say, is because, you're doing a much bigger investment and you're committing to days on end of being in that environment. But we have to remember there's millions of people that live within a day's drive that might just say, it seems safe enough. Let's just go for half a day, right? Just for a little while, right? And then you start to get that social proof that comes out of that and go, well, people have been going and it's fine. And, I think that's kind of how that engine relights, is that, they I don't know. I don't think everybody can just say they're going to wait till a vaccine. I understand that's the smartest thing to do, but I think a lot of people are going to be really itching to go. But does that factor kind of day trippers? Does that change thoughts any for you there?
Well, no, I think that is who really goes at first. I don't think,
the cannon fodder, we call them.
Yeah, because I can't imagine somebody's going to book a trip and say, hey, it's been $10,000 to get down there, stay in a hotel, and go to the parks. I know there will be. I'm not saying that nobody will.
You got to talk in
but
generalities, of course.
But in general, that the typical, 85% of Disney's Disney World's base that goes there, they're not going to be doing that for the most part. So, I think it is going to be a lot of locals. I think it is. In fact, it might just be Florida residents at first. Chris, you and I kind of talked about it. Yeah, I mean,
by mandate.
Yeah, they check your license when you go in, and you have to be a Florida resident.
Why do you think they would limit that? How does that help Disney to do that?
Because you're not inviting people from other states.
Okay. You're not contributing to the spread.
Right. So let's say, the worst happens and Disney opens and it becomes a hotspot, right? And so everybody, who went there now has it. And so if you can at least contain it within Florida, it's better than having people fly back to New York and Chicago and everywhere else. Spreading it.
I look at it the other way. I don't want people from Tennessee coming down here and spreading their germs.
Tennessee's a special case, but yeah, no, I get you, and you're right. It does work both ways. I mean, the state of Florida is not being too kind to the state of Louisiana residents. They're checking people at the border and making Louisianians, shelter in place for 14 days, self-quarantine, and everything else. Because we had a high rate. Now it's
sure,
lower than
that's the reason.
Florida's. Yeah. Right. I know. We were just ahead of the curve. Right. But you're right. I mean, you don't want others to come in and spread it in Florida either. So at least, right now, if it's contained in Florida and the line is flattening, why would you change that? You work with that population and use that population as a test bed.
Mm-hmm. Cannon fodder, right? Okay.
So what Casey, you said something earlier that I agree with, and it kind of bleeds into what I was talking about. When will people come back versus when will it open? And there is the moral part, and this is Disney, and this is what this is something that's intangible, right? You really can't. It's hard for me to make an argument on this, and this is what I've been, part of what I've been trying to get across to Chris. And
don't say it like I'm thick.
No. I don't think I've done a good job of describing it. But Casey, I think you did it right. where, say they open September 1st, let's say they don't have everything in place, and these are just basic things. I think Disney is going to go the extra step, and they're going to redo their whole Fast Pass, logic. They're going to redo the queues. They're not going to want to put down blue painter's tape every 6 feet, right? I mean, they're going to want to do it themed. They're going to want to prepare before they let the first people in. And they might have to adjust that after they see what it really is and test it and everything else. But so I think, Disney is going to try to go the extra mile. And I would hope that they would want to be safe, because if the worst happens and it does become a hotspot, then Disney is dead. The Disney theme park is dead, because who's going to want to go there? Who's going to trust them, right? It's you get one shot at this at reopening. And so I think that I really hope that the science and that outweigh what the mayor of Orange County and the governor of Florida are trying to do. I really hope that they use logic and wait as long as possible. And I say September 1st. I really hope I'm wrong, and I really hope it is January or March of next year, whatever, until they're fully ready and can do it right.
But that was me biting my tongue.
Well, the other thing that we're going to bump into sooner rather than later is, okay, let's assume they're going into 2021. At that point, they can just wait it out, right? They don't have any major events planned for 2021 that they would really want to have the parks open for. I mean, right? So that we can just wait it out till 2022.
Yeah, just skip 2021 altogether. You don't need that. Yeah, and I don't disagree with you, Glenn, but there's a it's not black or white. It's not like, okay, well, this happens and then suddenly Disney's completely on the right side of the law, so to speak. The moralistic law. They have no, everything is just a matter of degrees, right? And it's that way even on a normal basis, right? I mean, that's sure. They have warning signs up that women who are pregnant shouldn't ride this ride, et cetera. So there's always some amount of, now granted, I know it's different times and it's I get all that, but I'm just saying there is. In a cold actuarial kind of sense, there is a balance of trying to figure out where that tipping point is of, we're as shielded as we're going to be for some period of time. If you're Disney, we've got in all the approaches that we can at this point. And I think they're going to lean really heavily on, obviously, the science advisors and the government to say these are the parameters because, they need that. But they're both kind of pointing at each other. I mean, I think Orange County kind of said, well, Disney, it's kind of up to you. Well, I mean, you're kind of your own city. So, have at it. So and that's the part I have trouble with is just like, and it's kind of a microcosm of the overall country's argument of, at what point is it worse for everybody to have it all shut down? When you've got tens of thousands, like I don't know what the actual percentage is. I'm sure you do, but that are employed in the economy that goes into the area around here. Like there's so many gray areas of where that tipping point is. I do think that because there is no one canonical solution set that they need to implement. So I think it is going to be a little bit of painter's tape in a Disney way to get them started on some things. But I don't know about, just a case in point, like Publix I noticed down here. Casey, do you know Publix? Our local...
Yeah, we have them here. They
really?
Just came into they came into the Richmond area a couple of years ago.
I didn't think they went that far.
You're so lucky.
Mm-hmm. Man, wait a minute. You have Wegmans and Publix?
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, I hate you. All right. I when I used to live up in New Jersey, we had Wegmans and they were great. Anyway, got distracted by grocery stores. Oh, Publix. So I noticed this past week they started off with the painter's tape on the floor with the arrows pointing one way and spacing people apart. And now they've gotten in their custom graphics so that it looks nice and like it's not so much like a war zone. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you. Disney's going to have to Disneyfy it and plus one, but who knows how long that's going to take for them. Yeah. I don't know. I just me. I'm more of a let's go kind of guy, but yeah. I don't know. Part of it's I'm just I'm going through withdrawal too. So you got to give me some slack.
Yeah. And Casey, I'm sorry if I'm stepping on you, but there was another article that I read about Landry's restaurants, and the CEO said that until they have, if they were to reopen, because he's had to furlough everybody and close down the restaurants and all, and he said that it's actually more expensive. They would lose more money if they opened, if it didn't hit the percentage of customers that they normally have. So even as they open in certain states, they're going to stay closed because they're going to lose more money. And so that's where what in one of these analysts reports, they say that Disney needs to be running at 50% of capacity to break even. So and I know, I'm sure it's no coincidence that first phase is 50%. So, but you have to staff up and have, almost 100% staff even to have the first guest come in. If you're wiping everything down, if you're making sure that everybody's staying the 6 feet apart, you're going to need people there to enforce that.
But again, you don't have to be profitable from the first moment. You have to kind of go. It's kind of almost like starting a business that you're going to go through some unprofitable years to get it started, to get it ramped back up again. So, they're gonna have to go through that phase, right?
Well, but hold on. But let's pull on that thread for a minute, right? So, if I'm a business and I'm thinking completely unemotionally, I'm only going to want to open if I can make a profit, which is, I think, what you guys are saying at first. But then, okay, let's assume that it's like almost like guerrilla marketing, right? Well, I know I'm going to open at like 50% and it's going to stink and I'm going to lose money. But once everyone is starting to go and that engine is restarted, that will show the rest of the country that, well, the Floridians, Florida man has survived Disney World. So if Florida man survives Disney World, then perhaps everyone else can. And so, okay, maybe we'll do a month or two at 50%, but that's just good. That's just going to rev everyone up and we're good to go. Mm-hmm. But the flip side of that is the only way I'm starting up Disney World again and I'm opening Disney World again at a loss is if I am pretty much certain that in a couple of months it's going to be back to normal, everything's good to go. Mm-hmm. And if we're in this position where we're just guessing that a little bit of Purell and a little bit of distance is enough, there's no freaking way I'm taking that chance. Right. There's no way I'm taking that chance. And so even though I had said a little while ago, as a business, they're going to want to make money, I also don't think that they're going to want to nail the coffin shut on Disney World either, because if they try to reopen and it backfires, that's going to backfire hard. Sure. Because why would we trust Disney to be right the second time when they clearly weren't the first time? Yeah,
completely agree. And that's probably one of the biggest dynamics of it is like you get one shot to do it right. And so for that, I agree with you on that that would probably push the timeline longer. But I do, you may have been joking, Casey, but you mentioned about 2021, and it may be that hey guys, we need to get Disney World back on track because we got all this stuff planned for, I don't know, let's say October 2021, just a random date. Mm-hmm. And hey guys, all you smart people with spreadsheets, how long is it going to take us from where we are today to get back up to where we feel like we're running a full park again? Now, obviously with a whole lot of changes because there's new normal, maybe there's a vaccine, maybe there's not, but either way, that's kind of our mark. And if they say, well, sir, it's going to be 18 months, then you're going to be like, well, then we kind of have to get some things rolling sooner than later. If they say, we think there's a ramp up in a 6-month period, then that gives you some wiggle room to say, well, we can start later. But they, there's certainly a company that's in great financial shape. They at least have that somewhat arbitrary but important calendar marker that they got to get to, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It was
kind of tepid.
So I don't know what, even if we are getting to the time at which 50th anniversary? Is that right?
Yes.
40th, 50th, 40th? It doesn't matter. Some anniversary.
It's 50. It's 50.
It's 50.
It is? Okay.
Yeah.
So the 50th anniversary is coming up on what, October 1, you said? Is that right?
2021.
Or Yep. So October 1 is approaching. They're not open yet. They're going to want to do some big blowout. I almost wonder if they would hold on and kind of rebirth Disney on October 1st. Like, let's say it's
Oh my gosh.
this time
Wow.
next year and they haven't opened yet. I almost wonder if they would just hang on and say, you know what, we're going to rebirth the whole darn park in 2021.
You just made my heart stop for like 2 minutes there. Wow, that's
Actually,
that's interesting though.
I think that's a great idea, and I think that because all construction's halted right now, and Epcot's like half torn up, and Tron ride's not done, and Guardians of the Galaxy and everything. Why not take the time now, get the construction crews back in, and you can say, hey, we're doing construction. We're putting people back to work. Finish up all the construction, and then October 1st next year. Okay, we're back open, and everything's open. Come on back.
Yeah, well, and that is another dynamic is that it for the construction aspects, because there is so much going on.
Yeah,
they may say, you know what, we can get done so much faster if we leave the park closed. Right. Because then we don't have to worry about, all the walls to put up and the guest
magic.
flow and all that stuff. Yeah. All that magic we got to keep worrying about doing. That's another aspect too. They might say, you know what, we want to open up this year, but you know what, if we didn't, we could sure get through this project and this project and this project. Yeah. And guess what? It would cost us 60% less by doing it that way.
Right. And if sports start up and there's no fans in attendance, that's only going to help Disney because they, owning ESPN, they're screwed, right? And there's nothing to show. But if the only way you can see your sports teams play is on ESPN and ABC and whatever else they own, that money starts rolling in. Advertisements from the country starting back up, restaurants and everything else. Those start getting advertising money. They can start to have new content on their both in the theaters and on TV. Get the other revenue streams going for Disney. Why not? Why not leave the Disney World closed? I mean, Disneyland, I think it's closed until I think Disneyland's closed until January 1st.
Oh, you think it would actually be longer?
Well, yeah, because California, they're in no rush to open up.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it'll be longer for Disneyland. But
well, you say that, but isn't California doing better than everyone else is right now? I haven't looked in a little while. So
yeah, but they're being very, very cautious. And
now, when you say California, you're not talking California, the state. You're talking about Disney California.
No. I'm talking about California, the state.
Yeah, the state.
Okay, all right.
No, it looks like, the problem is there's like 17 different places you can look to see the state of things. But
right.
According to RT.live, California is actually middle of the pack.
Okay.
So it's perhaps not as rosy as I thought. But I don't know. Where's Florida? Where's Florida, man, for me?
Hey, we're doing great. Yeah.
You're actually adjacent to California. You are one step worse than California.
Oh, well, hey, worse. That's just your opinion, man.
Well, it's still a handful of steps better than Virginia. So who am I to talk?
So, I mean, it's all a guessing game. This has been a great conversation.
Did we solve it for them?
Not at all. Not even close.
Not at all. I will admit, I feel a little dumb now that I'm a little more kind of go fever than you guys. But I think part of it really is in my. I mean, number one, on a very small scale, we kind of miss going. We'd like to get things back to normal so that we can get that kind of normalcy back in our lives. But literally in the subdivision I live in, half, 3/4 of the people that live in this subdivision work at Disney World. Yeah. So I look around me every day and I'm like, what are all these people going to do? So, I do have a little bit of this sort of, it's literally my neighbors that, we need to kind of somehow get things back on track so that they can start making a living again. But, or things just change and, they go to Virginia and find work there. And I don't know. I don't know what to do. But
so that is the balancing act because so many people do work at Disney. Is it 50,000?
It's 50,000. Yeah, 50,000 generally, right? I mean,
yeah. So 50,000 in the greater Orlando area living there, and they're getting unemployment, and so that's eating at the state's resources, and it's not it's really not a good situation for. So yeah, if Disney stays closed, to be safe and do it the right way and know that they only have one shot at reopening and do it the way that maybe they want to do it, or maybe not, who knows, then you're impacting all those people who work there and rely on Disney for a living. And then when Disney does want to open up, they have to rehire everybody and train everybody and train them in this new world. So, the sooner they can reopen, most of those people will come back. They know how to do their jobs. They just need to learn the new part of it. So that's the case for opening it a lot sooner. And so you're right. I mean, where's that balance where, to satisfy and make an impact in the economy versus, just, making 100% sure, nothing's 100%, I know, but, making a lot more sure, let's push it back and not open until we're sure. I don't know. I don't know what's going to, I have an idea what's going to win out, and that's why I'm saying September 1st. I think that's the happy ground, between the two. But yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't think we solved it. Gosh, I thought we were going to solve it for him.
Well, and that's the other problem is that, as you guys are saying, there's so much relying on Disney, and Glenn, I think you had sent a snippet or a news article saying that the Southwest CEO was like, hey, can you please reopen? Pretty please. Right. And it trickles down from there, right? Like it's just, there's so much that relies on one arguably frivolous and silly place. Now, obviously, I don't really feel that way, but I mean, on paper, like it's an amusement park. Sure. Who cares? Like if it needs to stay closed forever, oh well. But the reality is, some of my family, as we discussed last time I was on the show, some of my family's most cherished memories happened in those parks, and I would be devastated to lose them. But there's so much relying on this, and if you're Bob C or whoever's in charge of making these decisions, and maybe it is Big Bob after all, but whatever. If you're making this decision, like you got to weigh all those things. And if it's me and I've got a bunch of shareholders saying, please make money again. And I've got a bunch of government saying, please put people to work again. And I've got a bunch of other business saying, please, can we have reasons to come to you again? I mean, it's going to be real hard to say no to all of those people. Yeah,
I agree. I think that will win out, and it will open sooner rather than later.
Well, hopefully they do so with the best possible controls in place. And for me, that seems like they really got to start very, very small and let a trickle of people in, and I understand 50% marker for profitability, whatever, but I think they're going to have to just bite the cost and kind of constrain it the best they can, let in just a few people. And then you're right, Casey. I'll be out there as soon as my wife would let me go, because I'm like, hey, there's nobody here. Now's the time to go. But
so I wonder. So to pull on that thread briefly, what how do you limit people? Like, one of you guys had said, well, maybe it's just Floridians at first. I think that makes sense. But even if it's just Floridians, what if 10,000 people show up at the Magic Kingdom gates the first day? So do you do like seniority, like how many years you've held annual passes or something like that? Do you limit it just to, I don't remember the term for it, but I know that if you're like silly wealthy, you can get escorted around the park. Yeah, sure. You can get escorted around the park for the tune of like $500 an hour or something like that. You can get escorted around the park and they'll walk you to the front of all the lines and so on and so forth. Like, do you limit it only to people who are willing to buy that package? Like, yes, you can come to Disney World, but you must get the, whatever this package is called, the escorted cast member package. So there's maybe 10 groups in the park or something like that, which obviously from a financial standpoint is ruinous. There's no way they would want to do that, but perhaps just to ease people in, that's how you do it. But I mean, how do you limit who is entering the park? Or do you just pull a Disneyland and say, well, we've hit our limit, go away?
Can I take a run at this, Glenn? And then
please
you can,
do. Yes,
you can give the right answer once I stumble through it.
No,
so
ahead.
yeah, I think the most rudimentary way is what you said, Casey, which happens every year at the holidays anyway. I mean, they hit park capacity and that's it. And people that show up, they go, sorry, can't get in, and it sucks for them. And that's the most rudimentary way to do it. But they also have those special event where they sell separate tickets. they could open with that and say, because they've given people the option to stop payment on their annual passes. So basically, right now I'm not paying for it. I don't have a right to use the pass, so to speak. So they could say we're going to open up, and every day there's 5,000 tickets, 10,000 tickets, and whoever buys them, and that's who gets in.
Yeah.
To me, that seems like the most plausible sense that they would just kind of do special commemorative pandemic tickets that people can
So,
get.
all kidding aside, you're thinking something along the lines of the Not So Scary Halloween, something like that.
Exactly. Because those are what, in the range of 5,000 to 20,000 people or so, Glenn, for Magic Kingdom.
Probably closer to 20,000 because I think the park capacity is 50,000.
50, yeah. Right.
Yeah, so I would say that.
See, I'm thinking of like you dial it like 5,000, right? Somewhere 5 to 10,000, somewhere in there early on.
So the thing that we did in January, the Disney After Hours, that was limited to just about 5,000 people, and I could see it being a lot more like that.
Sure.
Than
have you had an opportunity to do that kind of thing, Casey? Where very limited attendance kind of after hours thing?
No, the closest I've ever come is Magic Hours, which is still better, but not really what you're talking about.
Yeah, for these really restricted events like the one we went to, it's almost like you have to go hunt to find somebody down. So when you're talking 5,000 ish, there's a lot of room in the park for people to kind of spread out. So
that sounds amazing.
And we paid.
It is. And that's why we did it.
We paid
$130
awesome. For that privilege for 3 hours.
Yeah, and I already have an annual pass, so I paid that on top of it. So so I could see something like that, and I think 10 for me, like 7,500 to 10,000 seems like you'd get enough people in that it's felt like people were there, but still have plenty of room to kind of spread out.
Yeah.
But again, being very selective on, we're not going to open this store, we're not going to open this eating establishment. Only these 5 rides are open. Which, by the way, they also do on those limited attendance nights. Not every ride is open. Not for this reason, obviously, but just they only have certain rides open. They could do similar things. So, to me, that seems like the most obvious path to recovery for them. But they'd have to really restrict it. That's why I was so shocked to see that phase 1 for theme parks, large theme parks, was 50% capacity, because that's that's 25,000 people in there. That's way too many.
Right.
Yeah, that is way too many.
So, but just let me in. I'll try it out first, and then everybody else can.
I will let you try it out first.
No, just me. Like nobody else.
Nobody else.
I will still let you do that, as long as you take pictures and have a trip report.
Yeah. Should we? I would do that. For what you pay me, of course I would do that. All right. I think we give them something to work with.
Okay, good.
I think it's been solved.
I'm sure Bob and Bob will reference this show.
I'm sure.
For them to work it all out.
Oh, boy.
So what did we talk about last week? I feel like I want to put Casey on the spot. What did we talk about last week, Glenn? If you had an hour in the park, is that what we said?
Yes.
What was the thought experiment we set up? So have right now the park's closed, Disney World. You have an hour you can spend. What do we decide? In a park, a location? What do we say?
In a park.
In a park.
A park.
Okay. So you have an hour, by yourself or you with your family, up to you. You have an hour. Everything's closed. Like no rides, no stores, but you have an hour. You can go wander around and enjoy yourself. Where would you spend that hour?
Oh, that is an excellent question, which I'm utterly unprepared for.
That's the fun of it. Yeah. You can punt.
I don't know. My initial reaction is to flip on the lights in Space Mountain and ride the People Mover a bunch of times.
Good man.
And while I'm in there, I can go see the Magic Kingdom tunnels, which I've never had the pleasure of seeing. I think that's an obvious first step. But I don't know if that would be my final answer. I would love, and it's not a park, but I would love to be able to drive the monorail, which I know that I think we discussed last time I was here, that we used to be able to ride in the front, and now for obvious reasons that isn't allowed anymore. But I'd love to be able to drive one and like see the garage where they're worked on and so on and so forth. I don't know. That's so tough because there's so many good answers. Maybe the child in me would want a different kind of child. The immature person in me, is I guess how I should have phrased it, would want to do a drinking around the world, but it's just me. Just me and Aaron, just getting day drunk.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Bouncing back and forth as quickly as possible. That's very aggressive in general. Doubly aggressive in the span of an hour, but challenge accepted.
Yeah, you can do it. You just have to.
I don't know.
Make it run.
I feel like there's a better answer here, and I'm not sure what it is. In some ways, I almost wonder if it would be even more fun to like get on a jet ski and just tool around. What's the name of the lake that like connects Magic Kingdom and everything else? But just tool around on Bay Lake or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And just kind of see everything and be able to do that. I'm dodging your question accidentally because I have so many different decent things that I would want to do. And plus I just think it would be fascinating to be able to see like control rooms. Like what does it look like to be in the control room for Rock and Roller Coaster, or even the People Mover seems like it's right in the platform there, but you know what I mean? Like, or a Monorail Central or whatever they call it, where the monorails are dispatched and the control tower is and so on and so forth. Like I would love to see that nerdy stuff that I would love. And I don't think we're gonna have time to talk about it. But this is why I was head over heels for the Imagineering story, which I cannot recommend enough. It is such unbelievably good programming. It is impossibly good. The only documentary series that I've seen of late that even comes close is this Michael Jordan and Bulls documentary series that's going on as we're recording, which if you paid attention to basketball at all in the 90s is also phenomenal. But Imagineering story is right up there with it, if not better. And all of that nerdy behind the scenes stuff is the stuff I think I would really want to see. I almost feel like the itch I want scratched is less riding a bunch of rides over and over again, despite me saying I would love to do People Mover that way. But more, I want to see the stuff that I can't see normally.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've told others that, because a lot of people are surprised and I found out like you're a big Disney World fan, but I feel like I have to explain to people what I love about Disney World is the creation and operation of it. It's not so much riding the rides and stuff. I'd love just how the whole thing operates and its history and how it came to be. And just like, it's like this giant machine that, just really impressive, which, you mentioned the utilidors, right? The tunnels underneath.
Yep.
Next time you visit and hopefully, make 10 minutes so that we can say hi, but next time you visit, save a little money and a little time and do the, I think they still run it, Glenn, that tour that we did a long time ago.
Keys to the Kingdom.
Keys to the Kingdom tour in Magic Kingdom. It's not the cheapest thing, but it's Disney, so what is? But it's really good. Even if you are a devout studier of Magic Kingdom and history and know how it works, they take you behind the scenes and even down into the utilidors for a brief visit. It's a really good tour. So next time you have that opportunity, if Disney World ever opens again and you have that opportunity, then you can go do that. So highly recommend that. I
definitely would. I would love to. Erin, when she was there in February, she did the Behind the Seeds tour, I think it is, the one at Living with the Land, and that's always been a favorite of ours because it's kind of like a water-based People Mover in a lot of ways.
Sure, absolutely.
And although I swear it's gotten busier over the years, which I mean I kind of understand because I love the ride, but to me People Mover I can see any normal human enjoying, whereas Living with the Land you have to be like a special kind of nerd to enjoy, I think, and I love it and she loves it, but. It's Living with the Land, like the fact that it has fast passes is still staggering to me because I can't imagine that many people being that excited about it. Even though that what's that food court there called? I really do love that food court that's right there, like Seasons or whatever it is.
Sunshine Seasons.
Yeah. There you go. But anyways, where was I going? Oh yeah, she did the Behind the Seeds tour, and she said that was phenomenal. She said it was way too old for like Declan, who was 5, or Michaela, who's 2, but not in terms of like being risque, just in terms of them finding it incredibly boring. But but I would love to go do that. And she said it was, as you guys were saying, it's not cheap, but given that you're at Disney World, she said it was reasonably affordable to be able to do something that you typically don't get to do.
Yeah, we ride that ride every chance we get, and my oldest loves it, and we're just waiting for him to get a little bit older, like you said, to really appreciate it, because we ride through and he sees all the people walking around. He's like, well, what are they doing? So, well, that's good. I don't think you haven't done that tour, have you, Glenn?
Yes.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I guess I wasn't paying attention. All right, well, I'm glad to hear it's good. I gotta go do it.
It is.
Okay. I guess you didn't invite me. Oh no, I remember you did that. You did that one vacation not so long ago, right?
It was a little bit ago, but we actually asked our kids because I wanted to do it this last trip, last year or the year, whatever, and and they didn't want to do it. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to force them to do it because it's such a great thing to do. Yeah. But I was like, oh no. But I know they would enjoy it once they got on it because it's so much fun. And I said, look, you can go right where the ride is. Like you'll be on the other side. Like you'll be part of the attraction. Isn't that cool? And they're like, no, Dad. But but it is a great tour. It really is.
All right, I got to go do that.
Yeah, you do.
Okay. What else are we covering, Glenn? Did we do it all?
One last question for Casey. Are you a Coke drinker or a Pepsi drinker or something else?
All right, so there's an easy question with a hint of backstory. The easy answer, I should say, with a hint of backstory. I am a Coke drinker, but specifically Diet Coke. Okay. And this actually ties into Disney. So if you'll join me on this meandering, wandering journey, I promise it's going somewhere. I am a Diet Coke fiend. Like I could drink Diet Coke all day, every day for the rest of my life, and it would not be enough. But coincidentally, my family were friends with a gentleman when I was in high school who most people believe was the guy who came up with "It's a Pepsi Generation," and he was a marketing guy for Pepsi for the longest time, and one of the most fascinating men I'd ever met in my life. And he passed several years ago now, but it was always uncomfortable when he came over to our house because we needed to make sure that there was plenty of Pepsi around. I mean, not that he was a jerk about it, but it seemed like flaunting, Diet Coke or Coke or whatever would be not kind. But I was allowed soda from whatever reasonable age when I was a kid. Like I don't have a particular memory of not being allowed to drink soda when I was young. I presume it wasn't until I was like 5 or 10 or something like that. But I remember vividly being a kid. Now it might have been a high school kid, but a kid of some flavor. And we were at Disney, and it was one of those god awful days where it was 1,000,000 degrees and 1,000,000% humidity. So as you would call it, Chris, Wednesday. And, and so we were there, and Dad decided he wanted a bottle of Diet Coke, and he shared that bottle of Diet Coke with me. And understand at the time I had never drank beer, and honestly, I'm not much of a beer drinker today, but be that as it may, that same feeling that beer drinkers claim or say that they get that when they drink a cold beer on a hot summer day, where it's just perfect. Like that was the genesis of my obsession with Diet Coke, was when I was at Disney and I was just dying, and Dad hands me this bottle of Diet Coke that was like ice cold, and I just took a big old slug of it, and it was so amazing. And I haven't stopped drinking Diet Coke since. Where were we going with this 20 minutes ago, out of curiosity?
That was the most perfect answer you could ever give. Number one, you passed the test.
Good.
And then that's a great story. And it ties back to Disney. I didn't even, that was not planned. It was.
Did you guys plan?
No, it was not planned.
No. So our last episode, we talked for maybe 30 minutes about Coke. Chris was trying the new Coke Energy. And he gave a taste on the air and everything else. So, and then we started talking about Coke, and Chris has a long history with Coke, with his family and everything else. So yeah, that's, I just was curious.
By the way, I just, for this show, I had the cherry flavored Coke Energy, and that's even better than the regular one. So just to follow up on my previous one. And I'm not an energy drink drinker, but it's pretty good.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's not really my thing either, but maybe I'd have to try
Not
that.
mine, but it was a Coke product, and I'm like, well, I got to give that a shot. So Diet Coke, there's something in that converts like armies of people to be devout fans of Diet Coke. It doesn't, whatever it is, it doesn't work on me. But I appreciate the love for it.
And the thing is, the aftertaste that a normal human gets from Diet Coke that like lingers uncomfortably for a while, that's the aftertaste that I get from regular Coke. So I would probably pass on a regular Coke. Huh? Yeah. So I would pass on a regular Coke most of the time. And I actually, in my limited experience, do tend to prefer regular Pepsi over regular Coke, but it's like, there's Diet Coke that's way up, is, all the way at the top of the graph is my favorite thing. And then like way down near the bottom, there's Pepsi, and then below that is Coke. You know what I mean? So it's like not even in the same ballpark.
Well, now I don't know how to feel about you, Casey. But,
I'm sorry.
I'm
very
nuanced.
We'll stop
at the first.
I'm a very nuanced individual.
You really are way more complicated than I thought.
To give you, this is not a joke, by the way. To give you the depths of my obsession / depravity, I genuinely went on a mission. I don't know, 3 years ago, looking into could I get like a single tap soda fountain for the house? Like, is that something I could do?
That would
and
be
would
awesome.
be even mildly affordable? And the answer is I could do it. It would not be mildly affordable.
Yeah, right.
But I had thought about it because left to my own devices, I would drink Diet Coke. I mean, not in the morning typically, but from noon until I went to bed, I would probably be sipping on Diet Coke. And
That's
I don't
amazing.
do that because it's really not healthy. But left to my own devices, I would. And so I thought to myself, a bag of syrup is like $2 or something like that. It's obscenely cheap. But the problem is getting the whole like CO2 and
Right,
spigot and all of that and the refrigerator and everything else involved to get like even just a one spigot soda fountain was something like $2,000 to $5,000, I think, when I looked several years
wow.
ago. Yeah. And even though I do drink a lot of Diet Coke, I don't drink that much Diet Coke.
I don't think it takes that kind of investment to have, because I know some people that have like kegs in their house, like kegerator
see,
type stuff.
I agree.
And it's not that complicated. But
I agree. So
actually,
maybe
the
I'm
company
wrong.
I used to work with, they even had a they could swap it out. It was either cold brew coffee or beer keg, depending on what time of day it was. They could kind of swap it in and out. So
That's amazing. I should look into it again, or maybe one of you guys will be the guinea pigs and tell me how to do it.
So now I'm curious, where do you fall on Coke Zero? Is that because it seems to me
It's acceptable. It's better to me than regular Coke because it's vaguely in the direction of Diet Coke. Maybe that's all in my head. I don't know. But I feel like I would take a Coke Zero over a regular Coke, but I still, because it does taste so similar to regular Coke, which in most contexts is a compliment. But for me, I'm kind of like, whatever.
That's funny. Yeah, because most of the Diet Coke fans that I know, they scoff at Coke Zero. Like to me, they taste like roughly the same. But apparently there's a huge.
God, no.
Apparently,
no.
I'm a heathen and don't know the difference. So
here's the thing. So my adult drink of choice is Tito's vodka, just on the rocks. And most people I say this to will either make some sort of inappropriate joke about what sort of individual would drink vodka, but also they will say, why Tito's? They all taste the same.
No,
and,
God, no, they don't. Who
well,
told you
exactly. And I actually don't think I'm a connoisseur by any stretch of the imagination, but I can tell you that like I've had plenty of Grey Goose in my day, and I actually don't really care for it very much. Yeah. And so there are definitely, even in a drink as simple as vodka, there are differences for sure. They may be minute. I don't think I have the palate to be able to tell a minute difference between one thing and another, but I can tell you that I haven't proven this, but I do believe if you put like Tito's and Grey Goose and Kettle and I don't know, something Smirnoff in front of me, I may not be able to tell what the other ones are, but I'm pretty darn sure I'd be able to pick out Tito's.
Yeah, especially if you drink them straight, because then there's definite difference. If you put them in a bunch of mixers, it wouldn't matter. But
exactly.
I agree. Actually, I'm weird in that sense. I like both Tito's and Grey Goose. If I have a choice, it's going to be one of those two. But interesting. All right, Glenn, vodka choice.
I don't have one. I don't.
Okay,
I'm not a drinker.
I covered that. I don't know how you get through life sometimes.
From New Orleans, from New Orleans, I'm not.
Yeah,
a
how does that work?
Right?
Well, they have to have one. He's like the control group, right? So they pick one.
That's right. I'm everybody's favorite person at a party, though.
All right, we need one person in the state who can drive.
Right.
So
you're the one. Well, I tell you what. Now it's sounding like in 15 years when Disney is open and we no longer have small children, it sounds like the three of us will be going to Disney, and Glenn, you will be holding us up as Chris and I are doing our drinks around the world and making sure that we actually make it onto the monorail or Skyliner or what have you in order to get back home.
Yeah, nice. That sounds like an absolute plan.
In January, we hit up Galaxy's Edge and had the blue milk. And I had the regular, and Chris and Andrew had the non-regular with the rum.
We chose the direct path.
Oh, actually, that kind of reminds me. This is very unrelated, and I know you're probably trying to hang up on me, and I don't blame you. But while you haven't hung up on me yet, Erin, my wife, found an article, one of those completely attention-grabbing clickbait articles about the most overrated meals or restaurants at Disney World. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, 2 questions for each of you. Number 1, what do you think was the consensus on this particular article? And number 2, what is your most overrated eatery at Disney World?
He's just trying to get us back for putting him on the spot.
Yeah, he is. Mm-hmm. All right. My guess for what everybody said is the most overrated is Le Cellier in Canada.
Okay.
That's my guess.
I will not confirm or
Okay,
deny
okay.
until both of you have
Yeah,
gone.
yeah.
I would guess Victoria and Albert's
Interesting. Okay.
as most
And
overrated. Second, I was thinking the contemporary. What do they call it now? Used to be the top of the world. What's it called the thing?
Oh, California Grill. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, California Grill.
I'll stick with mine.
So the answer unequivocally, I mean, well, I shouldn't say that. It was equivocated here and there, but almost universally, everyone said be our guest.
Oh my
As
God! I
easily
forgot.
the most
Completely
overrated.
forgot about
I
that,
didn't-
and it
I
is
didn't even think about
100% true.
Yeah,
That is absolutely right.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I was very fascinated to see that. Now, Erin had gone in her February trip to be our guest for lunch, I believe, and she was super amped to go. She was a huge Beauty and the Beast fan as a kid, and when she was done, she said, it was okay. Like the scenery, the ambiance was, and I mean, you guys jump in when you're ready. I've never been, but she said the scenery was amazing, and she had, I think, a French dip or something like that, and she said it was fine.
Well, it had the word French in it, so that makes sense.
Yeah, right.
I actually have not been there yet because I kind of from afar I kind of look at it and kind of has that vibe to it. I'm kind of like, it seems like that'd be disappointing.
Well,
But,
it's so hard
you've
to
been
get
there
in
one,
too, especially for dinner.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
We went at lunch when we went, and yeah, I agree with Aaron. It's okay. I mean, it's good, but it certainly doesn't live up to all the hype and everything else. I mean, it's a sandwich. It's not the greatest thing on earth.
Hey, but explain Le Cellier to me, because my wife and I used to go that. We used to go to that all the time, long ago. Often for our anniversary, because we just go hang around Epcot, and then we'd go there for dinner. And it wasn't hard to get in. And now it seems like you have to book that thing 6 months ahead of time. But I mean, the times we went, it was very good. Are you not a fan?
No, I am. I actually like, and that's why I was. So that's where my mindset was. It used to be easier to get in, but now it's like, oh my God, it's like the biggest place, the toughest place to get into, because it is a small restaurant by nature. Sure. And so that's what I was thinking was, people try to get in, and then they, in my mind, they're probably disappointed because it's been built up so much in their mind. Mm-hmm. But honestly, we went there a couple years ago. We got the dining plan, and that was one of the places we went. And I had a steak, and it was a very good steak.
Yeah, I don't know what attributed to its popularity, but it seemed like overnight, all of a sudden, everybody wanted to go there. Have you been there, Casey?
No, I haven't. Nor have I been to Victoria and Albert's, which I really would like to try. Victoria and Albert, well, both of them really. But it's funny because looking at this link, which I've put in the Skype chat for you guys, Renee at Disney by Age writes, my answer to the question is Victoria and Albert's in Disney's Grand Floridian. Why? The wording said overrated, and I think Victoria and Albert's is very, very good. However, it is, in my humble opinion, somewhat overrated. When I first tried it, I was expecting fireworks in my mouth, wine pairings that were so perfect they made the food come alive in my mouth. Don't get me wrong, it was great, but I didn't leave thinking that was the best meal I've had in months like I'd hoped to. Yeah. I left thinking that is an excellent Disney restaurant. And then she continued to say California Grill is a good alternative. Also Artist Point at Wilderness Lodge and Narcosis. Did I pronounce that right? There you go. Thank you. At Grand Floridian.
Narcosis? No. Now I've forgotten. You messed me up. Glenn?
Narcosis.
Narcosis, right. Thanks. Yeah, I forgot about Artist Point. We used to go there a lot, too. We haven't been there forever, but we used to go there a lot. Yeah, I think it just my uninformed opinion. I think a lot of it depends on where people are coming from in terms of their dining experience. Because even like on the cruise ships, they talk about some people just rave about the meals that are on Disney Cruise Line, and we've been on it and we're like, it was passable. Like but we've had the fortune of my wife and I, especially before we had kids, we traveled a lot. We've been to a lot of really great restaurants in a lot of different places, so it kind of changes frame of reference. So I think that plays a big part of it, but
yeah. The other thing I found very interesting was a lot of people were taking dumps all over Chef Mickey, which at first I was like, what? And if you recall from the last time we spoke, that was when I had this like seminal experience with Declan where he got to meet Mickey and all these things. But as I read all of these descriptions, you do realize that on paper, Chef Mickey's really isn't a very good restaurant. Like it's cramped. The buffet is in a weird place.
They rush you through. Yeah.
They kind of rush you through. And so I did understand what they were saying. And so, as we take notes for our future Disney trip that may or may not happen, see the first 40 minutes of this episode, we were trying to take down notes as to like what are some really good alternatives, and they had suggested Tusker House, Ohana, specifically for breakfast, the Four Seasons breakfast and Garden Grill at Epcot. And then the other thing, mostly unrelated, that I was curious to hear your guys' thoughts on, is they said Cinderella's Royal Table is fine, but you're much better off at the Askershus, something like that, Royal Banquet. Are you familiar with this? Is that any good?
Yeah, I mean it's a normal breakfast, even though it's in Norway or frozen world now. It's normal breakfast foods. So the benefit of having the character breakfast there is the princesses spend more time with you. And it's a lot more casual. It's a lot better to have the interaction with the characters there, because I've actually never done it there, but I've seen enough videos and read enough about it. I have done it at the castle, and it really is like they come up. It's very produced. They come up for maybe 30 seconds. You take your pictures with the kids, and then they move on, and it's just a rotation. And so yes, I agree with that.
But clearly the answer to all this is that the real solution is you just have to do them all, and then you can judge. Right? So,
exactly right.
Yeah, well.
But I will give a shout out for Ohana's. I don't know how we ended up into this very expensive tradition, but for each of my kids' birthdays, we go, for my youngest, we go to Chef Mickey's. For my oldest, we go to Ohana's. And I think I prefer Ohana's. I mean, I love Chef Mickey's because it's in the Contemporary, but just in terms of it, just they try to fit as many tables as they can in there. All the things that you read that people knock it about. So if I were to choose between the two, I think I like the general vibe of Ohana's better. But yeah, try them both. You got 2 kids, so you can make it a tradition for each other, right? So there you go.
Exactly right.
All right. That was fun. What else you got? I feel like there should be more quizzes.
I didn't prepare for this, so I think that's all I have off the top of my head.
Well, next time, if there's a next time,
I'll bring more questions next time.
All right. By the way, guys, I spent the last 2 days watching all of the Imagineering videos to prepare for today, and then you didn't have anything to talk about. Yes.
Okay. Well, we can go through that for the next hour. Let's go.
Sure. Let's do that.
We'll save that for next time.
Good, because it was a rough week.
Yeah, I know you, Chris.
Hey,
I know
that is not fair. That is not fair. You know what? I don't even know what I wouldn't say hesitancy, but there's something that I'm like holding back on watching. I'm not sure why. Well, I take it back. I think part of it is like I want to be in the right frame of mind. I want to be able to sit there and focus and absorb it. And it just seems like by the time the kids get to bed, I'm like, I don't know. I just need to watch something stupid. But you guys have watched all the episodes, is that right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
like I said before, I can't recommend it enough. It is such an incredible. I don't know if distillation is the right word, but a case study in design. And one of the things that my friend Jesse Chart has spoken about a lot is the design of Disney, because that's more in her wheelhouse from a professional perspective. But so much of the Imagineering story is about like the design that goes behind everything at Disney, and the things that they think about and the considerations that are made are just so phenomenal and incredible. And what I loved about Imagineering was that it was kind of half history and half super engineering deep dive on how things happen. And I don't know, it is definitely not a sit on the couch and let your brain turn off kind of show. So I do not blame you for avoiding it in that regard, but it is absolutely something worth watching. And it is incredibly fascinating and riveting to see a lot of stuff that at least I didn't know before. And, I'm educated as an engineer. I'm a tinkerer by disposition. And so seeing this stuff was just, tickling every like pleasure sensor in my brain, like, oh, that's how they do that. Or, oh yeah, of course they would think of it that way. Why wouldn't I think of it that way? All that stuff is just so fascinating.
Well, like I said earlier, that's what I love most about it, about the parks especially. So yeah, I think I'm just waiting for that perfect moment to happen when I'm, when everything aligns is not going to be there. So I just need to make time for it. And I think we talked about it briefly before we recorded, but it seems like Disney's pumping out a lot of material on the YouTubes for like behind the scenes and stuff. Have you guys watched that? You mentioned the Imagineering thing, Glenn. I saw that, and this is how it goes with Glenn. I'm always like, oh, I should send that to Glenn, but he already knows about it anyway. But it looked like they were doing like some virtual tour, and they're like doing virtual fireworks. It seems like Disney's like, let's do whatever we can to get some content out there for the people, huh?
Yeah, and keep people's interest in the parks. I actually have not watched it yet because, like you, I'm kind of waiting to the right time to where I can sit down, block out a bit of time, and watch all of them, because I think there's 5 episodes. Just watch them all at once, and so I actually haven't watched it yet.
How about you, Casey?
The handful of like Imagineering tours or whatever they are that are on YouTube, to be honest, I was really disappointed by them.
Oh,
they
okay.
were very short and very clearly marketing and little else. There was one about specifically Rock and Roller Coaster and how it works, where they talk about the linear induction motors in there, and that was very good. That was like 5-ish minutes, between 5 and 10 minutes, I think closer to 5 than 10, and that I thought was very well done. And that's what I was hoping the rest of these videos would be like, and they are not at all. They're just like 2.5-3 minute marketing blurbs where they're worth watching, especially since they're so darn short. But I was very much not impressed by what I saw there. I was hoping for so much more.
I actually saw that the Rock and Roller Coaster one, and I agreed, and that's what I thought the other ones were going to be like.
Yep, exactly.
So you can't start with the best one, because then you're like, oh, well, there's no point.
Yep, exactly.
Oh well. Yeah, well, maybe they'll keep pumping some stuff out. All right. Well, for next time we record, Glenn, I'll at least watch a couple of them. How's that?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'll commit to that.
The thing is, once you start watching the first one, you'll want to go through all of them.
Well, I'm hoping that's the case, and then there's
it's 100% the case.
But again, it's not that I don't want to see them. It's like I'm just looking for the perfect time to watch them, and it's not going to happen until the kids go off to college. So, all right. What else we got? Did we cover all the things?
Covered everything I wanted to cover.
Awesome. Casey, thank you again, man.
Yes.
So happy you came on.
Pleasure's all mine. I am always ready and willing to talk about the place that I'm never going to be able to go to again.
We can all remember as fondly. We can tell stories to our grandchildren.
Right, exactly. Remember that thing? Well, hey, who knows? Maybe we'll do some urban exploring in like 20 years and look at the completely ravaged swampland that was once Disney World.
Oh no!
Oh God, I hope that's not the case.
Or Glenn and I talked to we're all like tech guys. Why don't they really push forward VR and like really have like a phenomenal Disney World VR experience while they're not open? That would be great.
I think that sounds
and charge for it. You
why not?
have some revenue coming in, and
why not?
You just
I know you would pay.
So,
all right. I'm gonna stop now. Do I hit this stop button?
Yeah, I think
All
so.
Right. All right. See you guys.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
All right. Bye. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Starport 75. Follow Chris on Twitter and Instagram at CBGray, and Glenn on Twitter and Instagram at DizWiz. Follow the show on Twitter and Facebook at Starport75 and Instagram at TheStarport75. For all things related to the show, including show notes and links to connect with us, visit us at starport75.com.